Thank you so much for joining us today on Coffee With. My guest today is David Bell, very familiar face around town, president of Guaranty Bank, dive master, all-around good guy. Welcome to Coffee With.
Thank you.
Okay, now you've been diving. I'm assuming you don't really want to talk about Guaranty Bank.
Yeah, we get enough questions about the banking industry. Let's leave that alone.
Let's talk about diving.
Yeah, sure.
How long have you been diving?
Started in 1972.
I didn't even know you were born then.
Yeah, well, me and 3 other people. No. Yeah, I got started in 1972. It's a lot different then than it is now, both instruction-wise and equipment-wise. Big changes have been made, big improvements. Kind of got out of it back in the 80s, started working, didn't make time to go do it. I guess I got the bug really bad again, 2000. We took a cruise and kind of got back into it then, and really got the bug bad.
So where all have you been diving?
Most of our dives are around in Florida, but we do go down to Roatan, Honduras. We've gone down to Cozumel, but most of the diving around here is done in Florida, and people don't think that there's really good diving in Florida. We go to Pensacola. There's a small group outside of Jackson, about 5 or 6 friends, and we go down on a weekend, just load up and go to Florida. We've got a real good dive charter that we use down there. There are a lot of wrecks offshore in Pensacola, anywhere from 5 to 25 miles out. So it's really close, about a 4-hour drive, very inexpensive and really good diving. Of course, it's not as good as going to Roatan where you can see 80, 90, 150 feet. You can see 50 feet on a good day in the Gulf, but it's still a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Well, you and I have had this discussion before. I used to dive on the east coast of Florida, and those were, well, what most people consider shallow dives, because we're between 60 and 80 feet, and you have a lot of bottom time when you're diving shallow like that. And then I did dive, I guess off of the coast of Destin one time.
Yeah.
There was a wreck, and we went down there, and that was kind of a deep dive. I didn't... It was 110 feet.
Yeah, that's deep.
When I got down there, I only had about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you think it's worth it?
Yeah, technically, by definition, anything over 60 foot is a deep dive. 110 is definitely deep. You don't get a lot of bottom time, but depending on what you're going down to see, it can be worth it. There's a dive that we do out of Pensacola called the USS Oriskany. That was an aircraft carrier that they scuttled and sunk in May of '06 for an artificial reef, a dive reef. A bit of history, it was the aircraft carrier that John McCain flew off of and got shot down and spent 5 years in Hanoi off of it. Anyway, they turned into a reef, and the top of the superstructure is about 85 feet. And so then you go down to the flight deck at 150. So you don't have a lot of bottom time, but it's a really neat dive. So to answer your question, it's not worth it if there's not anything to see. Just to go deep for the sake of going deep is not worth it. Okay? I've had really good dives at 50 feet. I've had really great dives at 150 feet. It just depends on what you want to do. People ask me all the time about going deep, and the biggest thing is you run out of air faster. You mentioned no bottom time. That's a problem also. So again,
what's the deepest dive you've done?
175.
And how long did you get to stay down there?
About 4 minutes.
And how long did it take you to get back up?
About 20.
Yeah.
Now most of our dives, all of our dives are no decompression dives, where you simply don't have to do these stage stops on the way up. You do a 3-minute safety stop at around 20 feet, which is pretty much standard practice now. In some dives it becomes mandatory. But decompression diving is a whole other ball of wax. You've got to make a lot of different stops. But anyway, we don't do a lot of decompression dives.
Have you ever had the bends?
No.
I've heard it's bad.
Yeah, the bends is probably the single biggest drawback of diving. And what happens to you is you get these nitrogen bubbles that form in your bloodstream because you come up too quickly. And they lodge in certain areas of your body, and most of the time they're in joints, elbows, knees, necks, backs, what have you, and of course it makes you bend over, hence the name the bends. So it's pretty painful. It's like, if you're lucky, it just gets in your knees, your joints, your elbows, that kind of thing, fingers, But if you're unlucky, it can lodge in your brain and basically have a stroke. They can treat it. It's very treatable, but it takes a long time, very expensive, very painful treatment.
Don't they have to put you in a hyperbaric chamber?
Yes.
Yeah.
Depending on your dive profile, you will spend anywhere from 3 to 4 days in a hyper chamber. They'll take you down, they'll recompress you to the dive depth you were in, and then they'll very, very, very slowly bring you back up to depth, and you're breathing pure oxygen the whole time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a real painful experience. It's a real long, drawn-out experience. The chambers are not very big. You stay in there for about 6 or 8 hours at a stretch. So yeah, it's not fun. No, it's not what you want to do.
So what's been your most favorite place to dive?
You know, it's probably a toss-up. I love going to Roatan, Honduras. There's an island off the coast of Honduras called Roatan, and we go down there a lot, and dive. It's like what you see in the books and the movies. It's real clear, reefs will drop off. But then again, I like going down to Pensacola and diving the wrecks. There are not a lot of wrecks in Roatan. It's reef dive, wall dive, that kind of thing. But you go to Pensacola, Destin, Panama City, and you get a lot of wreck dives, both purposely sunk vessels and accidentally sunk. And it's a lot of fun to go on a wreck, see the fish, swim through the wreck, because the floor of the Gulf is basically a desert, okay? There's no reef in the Gulf. And anything you sink is going to attract fish, and attract a lot of fish. And so you hit these wrecks, and the fish are just everywhere. It's just gobs of them. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. So it's kind of a toss-up.
What got you interested in diving to begin with?
I guess I was the kid that was always, we'd go to the lake a lot. And, I was always underneath the pier, going to the bottom, bringing up sticks and mussel shells and dirt, anything. And so I'd spend hours and hours and hours doing that. And I guess that, and there was a TV show back in our generation called Sea Hunt, had Mike Nelson. And he fought all the bad guys underwater, did all that stuff. So yeah, that came along too. So I guess those two things kind of combined.
I remember when I used to dive, and we did, it was all drift diving because I wear a diving.
Yeah.
So that's all I've ever done. And I don't know if it's the same elsewhere, but it was so quiet and so peaceful. And once you were able to maintain your buoyancy, it was just kind of like you were in suspension or something. I don't.
Yeah, it's kind of like a spacewalk. You see the astronauts outside the space lab, and they're drifting. Same thing, very much the same thing. And like you said, you can adjust your buoyancy, and you absolutely don't weigh anything. They actually have dives that they'll take you on out in the middle of the ocean to where there is no bottom. I mean, it's just like thousands of feet deep, and they call blue water dives. And you simply go down 60, 80, 90, 120 feet, and you're just totally weightless, and you have no reference point. And so you truly are suspended.
I would think that. Have you done that? Mm-mm. To me, that would be a little disorienting.
It is. You can get what's called open water disorientation.
You can't tell top.
Yeah, you don't have a reference point. It can happen in very dark water. Again, you can't see anything. And you can get turned around very quickly.
Yeah, because everything, it all looks the same.
Yeah.
There is no reference.
Yeah, but drift dives are fun. I've done a couple of those.
Yeah. Well, do you think you're going to keep doing this just forever now?
Absolutely.
And didn't your daughter just get certified?
Yes, my youngest daughter, Caitlin, started out a year ago over in Jackson. A friend of ours, that was an instructor, and he passed away from cancer before he could certify her, sign off on her card. So she kept wanting to do it. And so there's a dive shop in Monroe I work with over there called Bayou Divers, and I took her over there, and she basically did the class all over. It takes 2 days is all it takes. And she did the pool work, the classroom, academic, everything, and did fine. Took her to Arkansas about a month ago to Lake DeGray and did a required open water dives. And then she and I went down with our group from Jackson about 2 weeks ago, and she got to do her first true open water dives. And we took her on the Oriskany, the aircraft carrier. And I was real apprehensive taking her down. I was pretty nervous, but she did fine. And she came up, and I heard her tell me, sitting on the boat, and she said, "Daddy, it's exactly like I've heard you tell people. It's all the fish, it's all the stuff you get to see." And
it's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
There really is nothing like it when you're down there and you're looking at the coral and all the colors and and fish that you just can't imagine that there's something like that on this earth.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people that don't dive or haven't dived yet. Is you can't understand until you go do it. Is you go in the water and you become part of that environment. You go in the woods, the deer run off, the ducks fly off, the birds leave you, squirrels leave you, but you go in the ocean, go in the Gulf, and as long as you don't make a threatening move, the fish don't leave, and they're as close as me to you. And I've actually been enveloped in whole schools of fish.
Me too.
And just swim with them or drift with them. And until you do that and see it, you really can't appreciate how fun it is. And that's something different.
What that, I mean, it's just impossible to describe.
It is. It is. And unfortunately, it doesn't last that long at a time. You know, tank's going to give you, roughly an hour, 45 minutes of air. So it ends too soon.
Now, does Shannon dive?
Yes, she does. She decided out of the blue probably, I don't know, about 4 years ago. Just came in and said, I'm going to take dive lessons. And I said, okay. So this buddy of mine that was over in Jackson that taught, a guy named Robert Wade, I called him. I said, got you a student, you're on your own with her. And so she did real well, and she's turned into a very good diver. I've taken her down to Roatan a couple times. She's done some deep dives off the cliff, off the wall, and does a real good job and likes it. Yeah.
Do you do night dives?
Yes, I've done several. I like night dives, really do. We did most of them in Roatan, Cozumel. We've done some in the Gulf, but you really want some real clear water on night dive because then you can see a lot easier. You can turn your light off. You got the moonlight. You can see without the light.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty neat.
It scared the heck out of me. Did I ever tell you what happened? I rolled off the back of the boat. I had lost a bunch of weight since I'd been diving. Mm-hmm. Hadn't adjusted my weight back.
Oh no.
Guess what happened?
A dirt dart, straight to the bottom. Yeah.
And then when my dive buddy got down there, I had about 3 seconds of air left.
Yeah.
Yeah, anxiety makes you
that happens to a lot of technical divers. They'll change up their gear configuration, and they'll dive what's called a wing instead of a BC, and they won't have, they'll have too much weight because they're diving twin steel tanks. And man, it'll just plummet you to the bottom, and you can't stop. I mean, you can't put enough air in your BC to stop that descent, and you'll blow your eardrums out and all kind of bad things.
It was mostly really dark because I was too panicked to get my
Yeah.
And then, everybody's above you coming down, so you can't see the silence on their tank.
Yeah.
It's just really dark.
Yeah. Yeah, I like night dives. Because your world basically goes from this to kind of right here. And you do a kind of a micro dive. You focus on real close in.
Do you teach? Are you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I'm a dive master, which is, basically an assistant instructor. I want to go this fall and get my instructor rating. This dive shop in Monroe, I mentioned Bayou Divers, has been real good to me. I will go over there and teach with them, and I'm going to go hopefully end of October and go do that, and then that may be kind of how I spend my retirement years after I get out of banking.
Yeah. Well, if anybody has any questions or they want to start diving, they can find you on Facebook or call you Guaranty Bank.
Yeah, just give me a shout.
Come knock on your door.
Absolutely.
I'm sure Shannon would appreciate it.
Yeah.
David, thanks so much for coming today, and we'll look forward to getting those pictures.
Okay, sounds good.
Promotional consideration provided by
Amber Sanders from Happy Hair. Get your hair happy at 3402 Wisconsin Avenue.